So friend, you feel like you've tried everything on the spiritual path, or at least enough different practices, techniques, teachings, philosophies, rituals, etc., to have gotten more out of it than you have to date. I remember feeling like this myself. I've worked with many students who have felt like this. It's very, very common. What you actually need is a reframe of what it means for spiritual practice to work. I want to share with you a comment that a friend of the channel, Dawn, left just the other day. We were talking about her history with spiritual practice, and Dawn said, hey Dawn, if you're watching, Dawn said, I did a bedtime candle meditation for 2 years. I would gaze into the candle and try to quiet the mind. I did lots of different breathing techniques each day, chanting, daily affirmations, cold showers daily, outdoor swimming all year round, number frequencies, yoga, trauma releasing exercises, sound baths, guided meditations, practicing presence, self-inquiry, reading so many books. I was always on the lookout, said Dawn, for new practices. Also became vegetarian and stopped drinking alcohol, stopped having sex with my husband. Wow, she said, writing all this down. I can't believe I did all that. So freeing to have let it all go. So how do you let it go, friend? This is the $1 million question, isn't it? In my most recent video, I shared the most powerful question that I ever heard from the great teacher Ram Dass, who asked, do you want to be a meditator or do you want to be free? This is actually the video that led to this conversation here with Dawn. Do you want to be a meditator or do you want to be free? This question didn't free me in an instant, but it caused a shift in perspective that led to my ultimate freedom, because it caused me to consider that I might have a dependency on my practice. That in a way of speaking, the cure had become the disease. I started my spiritual journey desperately attached to the things in the world, getting them or keeping them, or in the case that I didn't like them, pushing them away and staying away from them. But then I fell into a trap that is very common among dedicated spiritual practitioners, which is that I brought the mechanics of that attachment right into my practice and then became attached to practices like gladdening the mind from the Buddha's Anapanasati, practices like sitting and doing formal meditation, practices like being mindful of the breath in any and all moments throughout the day, practice like scrutinizing my thoughts obsessively. So what do you do, friend, if you're caught in this trap? Well, like I said in the beginning of this video, the key point is that you need to reframe what it means for a spiritual practice to work. What do we mean when we say our spiritual practice is working or not working? In other words, what are we really aiming for with a spiritual practice? Of course, the answer can and does change for most practitioners throughout the course of their journey. For me, when I came to spiritual practice, what I was really seeking was stress relief. Stress relief. If I could only stop creating so much tension in my body that I was literally in chronic pain. I used to hold so much tension in my upper back between my shoulders that I would wake up in pain and I would go to bed in pain. And for a long time I took this to be normal, and it was only when I started to consider that it might not be normal that I started to explore spiritual practices. And I found some relief, but then I ended up attached to my practice. So the answer to my question of what did it mean for my spiritual practice to work had to change. I had found some relief to the symptoms that I was trying to escape, but I found that I was still dependent. I was still not free. And that single word, free, is an excellent word for us to hold as the aspiration of our spiritual practice. Of course, when we're free, we're at peace. When we're free, we're content. I really mean freedom in the deepest sense of the word. Freedom from anything and everything, such that no matter where you are or what you're doing, you are unperturbed, unbothered, unfazed, unharmed. Good news. Who/what you really are is always unperturbed, unfazed, unbothered, unharmed. And this is what our friend Dawn has come to recognize. In this way, Dawn has won the cosmic lottery, the ultimate jackpot. Dawn has recognized her nature as awareness. Awareness that cannot and does not grasp and cling and attach, that does not and cannot label or describe or desire or seek. Awareness that is like space, in that nothing that occupies it can diminish or harm it. Dawn first of all encountered a teacher whom I deeply respect, a teacher named Ziji Rinpoche, also known as Candice O'Denver, who teaches this direct pointing to our nature as awareness. And Dawn then found my presentation of this teaching. And when we find two teachers that communicate the teaching in an effective way, we begin to triangulate our position. And of course, in these teachings on awareness, these teachings of non-duality, there is ultimate emphasis on confirming what is said in your direct experience. So let's do that now, friend. If you like, for these kinds of inquiries, you can close your eyes. I'm going to close mine. Pause the video if you need and go to a distraction-free environment. And get as comfortable as you can. Now consider your experience of this moment. It may be made up of physical sensations. It may be made up of thoughts, feelings, memories, a sense of yourself. There may be judgments regarding whether or not this can work for you, whether or not I'm someone worth listening to. There may be sounds from inside or outside the room. And of course, this is all changing constantly. In any single moment, there is what is. Accept this. Acceptance is the mode of awareness. Awareness does not judge. It is the space in which judgments occur. And if you judge the fact that you judge, that too is occurring in the basic space of awareness. Which does not limit what can appear within it, nor does it reach for anything that is outside of it. So regarding what your moment is made up of, don't seek to change it in any way. Let it be exactly as it is. In doing so, all you're doing is ceasing additional mental emotional processes which appear to obscure awareness. And that word appear is important because they don't obscure awareness. Awareness is aware of those mental emotional processes. Resist the temptation to speculate about what may or may not be going on in your subconscious. We're dealing only with direct experience here. What is present right now? What is perceived right now without trying to perceive it, without editing it in any way, without scrutinizing or speculating. We don't need to know where any of it came from or what its meaning is. By simply being with it as it is right now, it becomes no more important than the sound of the leaves rustling in the wind, the sight of ripples across the surface of water. Indeed, friend, it is your choosing to impose meaning on those ripples of thought and feeling that is the whole problem. And we get ourselves into feedback loops where we're anxious about being anxious about being anxious, thinking about thoughts. The most potent spiritual teachings across all cultures recommend that we simply let all of this go. The more you try to do anything about anything, the more you reinforce the belief that you must fix or improve or purify yourself. This is the whole problem. You are not that self that you think must be fixed or purified or improved. That self itself comes and goes within the space of awareness like any other appearance. Stop calling it important. This is not the same as saying on the relative level, you are unimportant. Indeed, what comes as a result of this practice is unfathomable self-love and love for others. But no longer in a personal, egotistical way. That's what we're letting go of here. In the absence of all this self-imposed meaning upon the various appearances that come and go within awareness, you can finally relax. You can finally rest. What a relief. And now finally, all of your energy is freed to benefit yourself and others. This benefit is enlightenment. This space, which is what you are, is enlightenment. The person that comes and goes within your awareness cannot get enlightened. This is what I mean when I say that we need to reframe your impression of what it means for spiritual practice to work. I hope you enjoyed that pointing, friend. If you did, do all the stuff that tells YouTube you want to see more of them. I'll be back very soon for another. And if you want some personalized guidance, if you'd like to learn about where you are in this whole picture, get some deeper guidance on what you can do to change your view of what it means for spiritual practice to work. If you want some deeper guidance on how you can step out of all that effortful practice like Dawn was doing previously and into this much more sustainable practice of recognition, of rest, then take my 1-minute quiz. There's a link in the description as always. And should it be appropriate, I'll extend to you an invitation for us to connect and have a conversation about your practice.